It was a crash that absolutely shook the world. And in all the years since the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, the official story has been just completely shadowed by questions and these sprawling conspiracy theories. So today, we're going to dive into it all and try to understand this enduring mystery. Was it a terrible accident, or was it something much, much darker?
And wow, we are jumping right into the deep end here. This is a really chilling note that Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, says she wrote way back in 1995. In it, she seems to predict the exact kind of accident that would kill her just 2 years later. Now, was this a genuine fear, or was it maybe just paranoia? Honestly, either way, this single note became the cornerstone for pretty much everyone who believes her death was no accident.
And this slide right here just lays out the whole conflict perfectly. On one side, you have years of official investigations that landed on unlawful killing, blaming the driver and the paparazzi. But then on the other side, a huge chunk of the public, like 85% in one poll, they just don't buy it. They believe it was murder. And that massive gap between the official story and what people believe, well, that's exactly where all these theories live and breathe. Okay, so before we get into all the wild theories, what is the official story? Let's take a quick look at what the huge British and French inquiries actually decided happened. So, the big British inquest in 2008 came back with a verdict of unlawful killing, and they said it was caused by a combination of things, a perfect storm, really. They pointed to the grossly negligent driving of the driver, Henri Paul, the aggressive way the paparazzi were chasing them, the simple fact that Diana and Dodi weren't wearing seatbelts, and, of course, the final fatal crash into that pillar in the tunnel. But here's the thing, nearly every single part of that perfect storm has been picked apart and questioned, and it all starts with the guy who was driving the car. The official story paints Henri Paul as a drunk driver who just lost control. Simple as that. But for the theorists, oh, he's a much more complicated figure. Was he really just a reckless employee, or was he a pawn in some kind of deadly game? Okay, this is where it gets really, really weird. If you look at the CCTV footage from the hotel just moments before they left, Paul looks totally fine. He's walking normally, he even bends down to tie his shoelaces, he seems sober. But then you look at the toxicology reports, and it's a completely different story. Blood alcohol over 3 times the legal limit, antidepressants in his system, and dangerously high levels of carbon monoxide. So how on earth can both of these things be true? You know, this huge difference led people to look really hard at the evidence itself. Critics pointed out that the amount of carbon monoxide in his blood was so high that he should have been physically unable to even stand, let alone drive a car. This is what fueled all the theories, that the blood samples were messed with, or maybe they weren't even his at all. And get this, while they did DNA tests to confirm the blood was his, even the coroner at the inquest had to admit there were some problems with how those tests were handled, which just left that door of doubt wide open. But, if you're going to claim there was a plot, you need a motive. And that brings us to the biggest reason people point to, Diana's relationship with Dodi Fayed and what that might have meant to the powers that be. So the theory basically goes like this. The royal family just could not accept the mother of a future king marrying a Muslim man, and definitely not if she was pregnant with his child. But when investigators actually dug into these claims, they came up empty. They found zero evidence that an engagement was about to be announced. The post-mortem exams and blood tests showed no signs of pregnancy, and as for the royal family being against it, the inquest pointed out that they never had a problem with her previous serious relationship with another Muslim man, Dr. Hasnat Khan. And this quote from Diana herself seems to back that up. She said this to a friend just a week before she died. Friends and family were all in agreement when they testified that she was just not planning on getting married at that time. Okay, so besides the driver and the motive, there is one piece of this puzzle that has stayed stubbornly, maddeningly mysterious for decades. The phantom car in the tunnel. Multiple people who were there swore they saw a white Fiat Uno actually hit Diana's Mercedes right before it crashed, and then they saw it just speed away. They even found white paint scrapings on the Mercedes. So this started this huge search by French police. I mean, they checked nearly 40,000 cars, but the Fiat was never officially found. It just vanished. And the search for this car led investigators down some really dark paths. At first, they focused on a French paparazzo named James Anderson, who happened to own a white Fiat Uno. He was questioned, but he denied everything. Then, a few years later, he's found dead in a burned-out car. The official ruling was suicide, but a lot of people found that very suspicious. Years after that, a British police report suggested the driver was probably a taxi driver named Lei Von Tung. So, if you look at the two main suspects, you can see why this mystery just won't go away. You have Andelson, the paparazzo, whose mysterious death raised all sorts of red flags. And then there's Levon Tong, the taxi driver, who owned a white Uno and supposedly had it resprayed red just hours after the crash. Some witnesses also saw a driver who looked like him, with a big dog in the back, driving away from the tunnel. But he has always denied it and refused to be formally interviewed again. And this leads us to what is probably the most explosive theory of them all, that this wasn't just some cover-up, but a full-blown state-sponsored assassination carried out by British intelligence. These claims came directly from a former MI6 officer, Richard Tomlinson, and he said the Paris crash looked eerily similar to a plan he saw back in 1992 to assassinate the Serbian president. What was that plan? To use a powerful strobe light to blind a driver in a tunnel, causing a crash. Tomlinson also claimed that the driver, Henri Paul, was actually an informant for MI6. Now, for what it's worth, the official inquiry, Operation Paget, was given total access to MI5 and MI6 files, and they found absolutely nothing to back up Tomlinson's story. They said the memo he remembered was for a different person and didn't involve a strobe light. And eventually, Tomlinson himself admitted that after so many years, he might have just misremembered some of the details. And feeding into this whole cover-up idea is the fact that Diana's body was embalmed in Paris before a full autopsy could be done back in the UK. Now, conspiracy theorists say this was a deliberate act, ordered by the establishment, to basically destroy any evidence in her blood or tissue, making it impossible to prove she was pregnant, a pregnancy that would have been the ultimate motive for murder. So after all of this, after all the investigations, why hasn't this story just faded away? Why do all these questions still persist, despite the official conclusions? Well, for starters, just look at the sheer scale of it. This number, 175, that's how many different conspiracy claims the police had to investigate just for their big inquiry, Operation Paget. I mean, the complexity is just staggering. And this brings us right back to where we started. On one side, you have the official conclusion from Operation Paget, which dismissed all the murder theories. But on the other, the doubt is still alive and well, kept going on by literally thousands and thousands of websites dedicated to proving that the official story is not the whole story. Maybe it's all the little inconsistencies, the sober driver who wasn't, the missing white Fiat, the whispers of secret agents. Or maybe it's just too hard for us to accept that a life that was so big, so extraordinary, could end in a way that was so random and brutal. Whatever the reason, the question mark is still there, and it's one that continues to fascinate us all.